Here's the thing about solar energy. 25 years ago, we knew that there was such a thing, but we also knew that it was still pretty primitive, expensive, clunky, hard to work with, so on. And all that has changed. Now it couldn't be easier. My name's Bill McKibben. I'm a writer. I wrote the first book about climate change a long time ago, 26 years ago. There are people who don't like the aesthetics of solar, and the only thing I can say to them is it's time we got a new aesthetic. Look, everybody would like any place that they know to stay exactly the same, but in fact, solar works in a lot of ways. It's good for farmers a lot of the time who now have a crop that pays reliable return, unlike a lot of the things we're trying to grow. It's good for the environment in other ways. Most of the, there's a lot of fields, say in Addison County, where we have a whole different kind of solar collector. We call them corn plants. There they are growing. We don't really need them because we've got more milk than we know what to do with, and that's what they're being fed for. And in order to make them grow, we've got to pour nitrogen on them that then rolls down the Otter Creek into the big lake and causes all the pollution that we're working so hard to try and overcome. Contrast that with the field of solar panels, where you can still graze goats, whatever, in between, where you're not doing any long-term damage to the soil. We can do what we can to try and site them so that you don't have to, not everyone has to see them all the time, but basically we've got to come to understand that this is a crop we use a lot of, electrons, and if we don't grow it here, then we're going to be blowing the tops off people's mountains in West Virginia in order to get at their coal. Then we're going to be fracking places all over the country to get at their natural gas. Then nothing comes for free. If you don't want to have climate change and you don't want to have a nuclear plant like most Vermonters don't, as long as you want to use electricity, and most of us do, you're going to need something.
I think that's the direction we have to go. We need to pursue renewable resources. Fossil fuel is not a platform to build on. We know that. At the same time, I do really value the landscape. So I understand that argument about keeping some of our landscape picturesque and pastoral, and it's what draws people to Vermont. I know that's been an argument in different articles I've seen about it. At the same time, when you look at farms, for example, and you think about what was the land like before the farm was there? Was there an outcry that we're cutting down this forest to put in this, this field?
Today was a beautiful sunny day. Think of all that sun going to waste. It's as if we had vast pools of oil just sitting around on the ground, and we just were, no one was paying any attention. Well, this is the same thing, except it's completely clean. If it spills, we call it a sunny day.
When I think about recycling, I think about all the other aspects of humans and their existence on the planet, and all the buildings that we build that last 25 years that we then knock down and reconstruct because we're following these really horrible economic plans instead of we're fortunate most of our clients are designing buildings that are going to last 50 to 100 years. We try to establish a minimum of 100 years because it costs more to build a building that's going to last 100 years and also be flexible and adaptable through that 100-year period. but it's worth the investment when you look at it from a long-term perspective. Well, a lot of buildings that are being built are being developed by developers, and their biggest concern is their initial payback period. So we're seeing huge structures that are going to be demolished in 25 to 40 years. And when you look at the recycling issues with solar panels or photovoltaic panels, as compared to that, it's insignificant.
Well, I mean, I think it's, as I say, I have solar panels all over my rooftop, and I think anyone who has the right kind of roof should definitely do it. I think the latest numbers I saw, though, were that something like 70% of Vermont residences aren't really fit for solar. Either the roof points the wrong way, or there's big old maple tree that's shading everything, or whatever it is. Increasingly, people are doing these great community solar projects where they're banding together with some of their neighbors to find a place to, you know. I do think it'd be really good and help people's sort of regard for all of this if we had more locally owned solar projects, and so that the financing and the money wasn't coming from outside. But, you know, realistically, most of the money in the U.S. is outside Vermont too. So it's, you know, sometimes good that some of that comes in. But yeah, I mean, if you got a roof, I don't know why you wouldn't have a solar panel up on it.
And we have to be willing to make changes that are better for the community. And I know there's many people that don't believe that renewable energy is good for the community at all. There's many people that believe that a solar panel in its lifespan doesn't produce the amount of energy it took to make it, which is completely untrue. But this is information that has been propagated from different sources. So when you have that level of understanding of what this equipment is and what it requires to live and what it takes to make, you're going to have people that are going to be just angry seeing it go up anywhere, even if it's not in their backyard. So we really need to do a better job of informing the public and citizens of what the technology is and what it does, and how it actually can alleviate quite a bit of fossil fuel usage or nuclear power. We recognized early on that our system had major flaws, and so we understand that it's much better to produce electricity closer to where it's being used, so that you minimize the number of transformations up and down to improve the efficiency of power generation and distribution.
What goes into making a net zero house?
What goes into making a net zero house is having a way of living that essentially uses no fossil fuels. The way you achieve this, well, it's much easier to achieve it if you build a new house, because it's possible now to build houses that are, the technical term is super insulated. That's the actual term. And you can put heavy insulation, you can combine insulation, you can wrap the house in ways that tape the windows and so forth in construction so that everything is airtight. So if you have a super insulated, airtight house, that makes it quite feasible to be net zero. What that also means, though, is if you have an air-tight house, as we do, you have to have an air exchange system or else you would die from no air.
So my husband came home and said, we need to build a house like this. So I said, why? We have a house. So he started talking about how energy efficient it would be and how we would be making less of an impact towards climate change. And so that began, you know, I had been starting to really think about climate change around 2006, 2007. Maybe we could build a house that would be a model for other people to look at and see that you can actually combine all these things, geothermal, solar, you know, build a net zero house. And so it took us about a year, and then we started working on it.
One of the things that kills me always about Vermont is that it's, you know, the people who can least afford to, who are basically heating the outdoors all winter, you know? I mean, drive down the road on a really cold day and you can just see the heat, you know, coming off roofs all over the place because they're not well insulated. Those are the same houses that are way too hot in the summer, you know. And those are the places that should benefit most as we move in this direction. I guess I've come to think of these things as kind of beautiful, I gotta say. When I see the big windmills up on the ridge, I think, boy, that looks like the future. That looks like people starting to take responsibility, and I think they're pretty. I think it's sort of the breeze made visible, you know. And when I look at the solar panels along Route 7, I think the same thing. Here's our land being used for things that we need, and there's a good feeling that comes with that. I think especially for me, because I've seen so many of the places in the world that pay the price when we're irresponsible. So I've been to Bangladesh and watched farmers losing their land because the ocean's rising. I've been to the small islands in the Pacific that may not be there in 50 years if we don't get climate change radically under control. But even in Vermont we can see it, you know. We come through winters like we had this December when it didn't snow, when it was, you know, ridiculously warm. Everybody was sad and just felt wrong, you know. That's what comes when you use energy irresponsibly, and we've got to stop. If we really bite the bullet and get to work and make this transition quickly, next 10, 15 years, then we may be able to do something to hold off climate change, keep it from getting out of control.
I really want public policy to catch up to this so that we get the regulations in place that every new home has to be built to this standard.
If we can begin to bend the curve over so that more and more people have net zero houses, which, as we were just saying, I believe is coming, that will make a difference.
I'm a great proponent of net zero energy homes. This home is comfortable and it's light and bright and there's nothing complicated about it, and I think it's going to be here for a long, long time. It's working well, and everything that was supposed to work works great. So I really want public policy to catch up to this so that we get the regulations in place that every new home has to be built to this standard.
For us, not only is it a very comfortable house, but it is a pleasure to participate in moving toward a new norm.